The way you sell is the way you do everything. This week on BCP. Hey there, Proud Nation, and welcome back to another episode of the Blue Collar Proud Show, the show that's all about having and living the blue collar business dream. If you can dream it, you can build it. And Taylor and I want to be along for that journey of success. Thanks so much for being in our audience every single week. My name is Carter Harkins, and here with me is Taylor Hill. Hey, man.
Hey, how are you this week?
I'm good. Good.
Yeah, I'm excited about this topic. You know, anytime we talk about sales, I get excited.
Yeah, sales training. So, I said at the top there that the way you sell is the way you do everything. And I hope we get a chance to kind of talk about that a little bit.
Well, how do you feel when the topic of sales comes up?
Yeah, so, originally, or back in the beginning of my career as a business owner and entrepreneur, I looked at sales as that intimidating, fearful thing that you had to psych yourself up for before you picked up the phone and, started dialing and talking to people.
Yeah.
I don't look at that. I don't look at it that way anymore. I really do. The shift has happened. I look at sales now as an opportunity to help somebody with a need to match that person up with the thing that can help them.
Yeah.
Having conversations. It's more about, it's driven by relationships. It's driven by a sense of, a bigger purpose that what I can contribute to someone's life can leave them better off than I found them. Mm-hmm. And so selling to me is less about trying to manipulate somebody into giving me cash,
Right.
separating fools from their money,
Right.
to quote P.T. Barnum.
Yeah.
But, it's more about what's going on in your world and how can I be a part of a solution to help you, get what you need. And if I don't have what you need, then maybe I can help you find what you need from someone else or, further down the line. If what I have for you right now isn't right for you right now, that's fine. I don't take that personally, and I don't feel like I have to have an agenda to push things on you that you're not ready for. We're just going to have a conversation and find out what you need, and if I can help you solve that need right now,
Right.
then I'd be thrilled to be able to have the honor of doing that for you. So it's a real different way. But I think everything is sales now. I look at everything. Every conversation I have with my 11-year-old is a selling opportunity, right?
Yeah.
He's selling me on why he needs a specific thing. Hey, Dad, can I have $5? Well, why do you want $5, right? So the selling begins.
Yeah.
Have
you ever heard, I wish I knew who said this, but one of the funniest things I ever heard was if you want to really just have an experience in sales, listen to a 2-year-old.
Oh, no, I know the quote you're talking about. It's back in the days when Donald Trump was doing The Apprentice. It was his right-hand man, George something?
It may have been. I don't know.
He said, everything I've ever learned about negotiating, I learned from a 2-year-old.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's just fascinating. And I've done that with my little grandson. And he's the eyes and Poppy, it really is. I mean, it is quite comical.
Exactly. Life is selling. I mean, every conversation, every negotiation you have with someone in a relationship, right down to, hey, honey, what do you want for dinner tonight? Right? Is a negotiation and a selling thing, right?
Yeah.
It's these are the advantages and the disadvantages and who's, positioning and all of those things. I mean, it's that art of communicating to the world and to those in our lives what we need, why we need it, why it's important, getting them to cooperate with that plan. It's one way of looking at it. But
or it's like you said, or helping somebody else get what they need.
Yes.
If you know somebody knows and you're able to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like the way in dinner. I don't always really care what we have for dinner, but my wife does. And so, it's more important to her than it is for me. I happen to cook. I can cook almost anything. What do you want?
Right.
Type of a deal, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
So it's not always just fulfilling your needs.
No, and in negotiating, that's it, right?
It's
you're giving someone a concession and letting them have what they most care about, so that you can get some of what you most care about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, interesting. Well, we're going to talk with someone today that I think has a great philosophy of selling. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that before we started this episode. He's somebody that we've known for a while, but to hear his story a little bit and find out his background and where he comes from and what his influences in selling have been, I think have all led up to him being a really effective sales trainer. So
Yeah, I agree.
I want to introduce to the show someone that was in the studio with us just recently talking with us. His name is Alan Rush. He owns a company called Rush Profits, and he's just a great guy and a good friend. So let's talk to him a little bit, roll this interview, and then we'll come back and chat a little bit more.
Sounds good.
Alan Rush, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, guys. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you here. Now, I want to just start because you're new on our show, and I want to make sure that people understand kind of where you come from. And personally, I'd like to know, too. We've had lots of great conversations. You're one of the smartest, most savvy sales and marketing people that I know, but I've never really heard your story. Where did you start in sales? Give us a little bit about your background, your philosophy on selling. And
Yeah, well, I joke that I've been a lifelong sales guy, starting with my first job at Cinemark Movies 8.
Oh, wow.
Ashland, I was the guy that for a quarter more, you can, get the large, double the size, that kind of deal. But first professional sales, I guess, at the end of 98, when I moved to Nashville and joined a company called Laser One. We sold printers and toners and probably the hardest thing to sell.
I remember them. Yeah.
Yeah, probably the hardest thing that you can sell out there, copiers and printers. And, it was a very commoditized type of sell. And, and then we got introduced to a new sales process called spin selling, which I don't know if anybody's ever read that book. Neil Rackham.
Yes, Neil Rackham. Yeah, back in the 80s, I believe, is when it first came out.
In late 90s, 88, 89, something like that.
Yeah.
But it really just introduced me to the idea of consultative sales and solution selling. And so we started a whole new approach of going into companies and just saying, hey, instead of letting me sell you some toner and sell you some printers, let's analyze what's going on in your business, and let's do a discovery, if you will, and how much are you spending on everything, and how are you moving paper, and then what if we could come up with a way to be more efficient with that? What if we could come up with a way to save you money? Which at the end we were selling printers and copiers and all that kind of stuff. And so hopefully none of my Laser One customers are listening to that. but that was the approach. But it really helped me understand that it wasn't about what I was selling. It was about the problems that I was solving for people, or about whatever their wants and needs were, that we were able to go in and fulfill those for them.
So when you talk about consultative selling, to me, it's a question-based model, right? You're going in saying, tell me what your needs are. Or if you don't even know what your needs are, then tell me how you do X, Y, and Z in your business, right?
That's exactly right.
You're breaking it down to really find out, and listening to their language, right? Where are they expressing pain? And maybe they haven't even realized what a pain point that is until they start telling you about how frustrating it is to try to do this one thing. And you realize, I've got something that can help with that.
No, absolutely. I mean, that's the whole idea of spinning, right? It's the situation, problem, implication, and the payoff questions, is that you're just asking questions. You're not selling anything. You're just asking questions to better understand the situation, and you're letting them give you the answers until you find what's really important to them. And they, again, like you just said, they may not even know what's important to them, or they may not know what their needs are, but through their own words, they start to develop that. And once they tell you something, they can't argue with themselves. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a beautiful strategy.
Exactly. Now, you've talked a lot about sales process too, and you've been able to develop sales processes, and talk a little bit about that. And I mean, because that's different than just managing yourself as a salesperson. That's building a system to win.
Absolutely. So I remember the first time when it clicked to me that it was no longer about what I sold and what my commissions were, and hitting my quotas and hitting those bars that the company would set for me to do as a rep. And once I had that light bulb switch, that if I just went out and helped enough people get what they wanted, that my problems went away, my financials, I was set. And so it was a beautiful kind of win-win situation, that all I had to do was help enough people, and then I helped myself, and I didn't have to worry about quotas anymore, because we were moving forward.
That was Zig Ziglar. And it really is. I mean, that's what we talk about here, and I had the same kind of light bulb moment myself, because I originally was taught that you have to overcome objections. That's the old style. You got to overcome the objection. If somebody says yes, no, whatever, I think about it, then there's all these kind of manipulative, formatty things. And then once you knew that, you would go in. I remember after I learned that, and I went in and bought a car, and I had more fun with the guy because I knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
And the thing about sales in a very consultative way is it's always different.
For sure. I mean, absolutely. I grew up originally learning those same sales strategies as well, and it was all about the type of question. Was it open-ended or was it closed? And, you had to kind of pin them, and then, you would have certain ways to answer specific objections to come back at them. But it was so aggressive.
Yeah.
And it was either you got it, and they were probably not happy if you did get it, or you didn't get it, and they felt like it was an interrogation. And so once you can truly master the relationship sell and the consultative sell, it's just a conversation with your customer.
Yeah.
It's really just understanding what their needs are and saying, hey, if you think that I'm a company that can help you, if you trust me, if you trust my company, you believe I'm an expert, then let's talk about ways to solve these issues for you or give you what you want.
Yeah.
And once you do that, man, it's not selling.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, if it feels like you're selling, stop it, because no one wants to buy anything
I like
from
that.
you.
Yeah, who wants to be a salesperson?
Nobody.
Nobody.
Absolutely
You,
not.
if you do what's best for the customer, it's amazing. The customer senses that and goes, "Oh, I want to work with you because you have my best interest at heart."
That's right. And you still have to have that sales guy in you a little bit, because I think one of the issues I see a lot out there is that people get really good at the consultative sell and then they forget to ask for the sell.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
we become two good friends, and it's like, oh, I don't want to ruin that relationship. Well, at the end of the day, we still have to proposition.
Right.
But we're propositioning something that makes a lot of sense for the customer instead
Right.
of selling them something.
Yeah,
So-
and you still have to handle objections too.
Absolutely.
I mean, those are a part of selling, but the way that you do that in a consultative, more spin selling model is a lot different. So, could we talk maybe a little bit about some of the objections, common? I mean, that's an area I think that needs to be talked about more, especially in home service businesses.
Mm-hmm.
Technicians are typically not salespeople first,
Yep.
and so spending some time talking about that would probably be a good idea.
Yeah. No, I mean, the idea, and I reference spin a lot just because it's molded who I am, is that if we have the proper sales process and we build the right rapport and we open the right doors, our goal is really not to handle objections, but to prevent them. And so Neil talks a lot about objection prevention. And so that's really the goal. And there's certain objections out there that are, if you get the need objection, if you get to the end of the sale and they're like, you know what, I've been using it for 30 years, it's fine. Or it's like, you know what, we just won't even use it. Well, shame on the salesperson, because you got backed into that trap. And if you would have asked the right questions earlier in the sale, you wouldn't have got to the end and realized you were backed into a corner and had nowhere to go. So a lot of the sales process is really about just not getting that objection, or if you do get it, you've got some ammo from conversations that you had earlier. And so that's a big one. Of course, the number one that everybody gets is price, right? I mean, if price only was never an objection, I would sell everything. That's kind of the what salespeople want to say, or the technicians want to say. But I mean, the reality is price is always going to be your number one objection. It's always going to be out there. You have to learn to deal with it. And price is just a consumer's, basically their perception of what they expect that something should cost. And especially if we're talking about the chimney guys or blue collar work, they have no basis of understanding, what that costs. And
why it costs what it costs.
Why it costs
right.
what it costs. Yeah. Or they're, heaven forbid, doing some apples oranges comparison online, right?
Yeah,
trying
exactly.
to figure that out. But I love to tell the story of my beer drinking, because you guys know I'm a big I'm been season ticket holder forever to the Titans and love going to the Predators game. That's how I got this beautiful scar
That's right.
at the Stanley Cup last year. So but I know when I go to one of those games, how much am I paying for a beer? $10 minimum. Now it's like $12, $13. But if I go to the grocery store and they try to charge me $60 for a 6-pack, I'd be like, you're insane. You're absolutely crazy. And so what's the difference there? The difference is I have an expectation of what something should cost in a situation. And the customers that when we go out and propose in their home, they have no idea, so they're just winging it. So we have to be able to deliver enough value so that they understand why we're charging what we're charging.
Yeah, and it's the same with our services. Exactly the same. Even though a business owner knows the cost of business, it's amazing how many times I have to re-educate on the cost of doing business, because there is a difference in just putting a one-page website up and putting a very authoritative, lovely website, that can attract same kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And so you have to have the relationship. You have to build that rapport. And so much of it, I think, comes down to trust and honesty. And I don't know about what you see out there, but what I see, it seems like the companies that we work with that do really, really well are the ones that are just upfront. Right. I mean, they don't apologize for their pricing. They don't back away from their pricing. They understand the value they bring. They understand how they're delivering that value. and they're just not afraid of it with anybody. And it's every consumer's or business's choice to do business with you or not.
Absolutely. And your trust is one of the biggest objectives
Yeah.
that people, again, you don't overcome that. You build that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
That's another one of those prevention things. It's like, if you get to the end and they just don't trust you, good luck.
Mm-hmm.
And so, especially like with the chimney guys that we all work a lot with, I mean, these customers are dealing with live fire in their home. They're dealing with venting of gases that they don't want in their home. Why would you ever not hire someone that had all the expertise and credibility in the world? And you can shortchange a lot of things, but you're not shortchanging something like that. So,
Yes.
so that's really the message to get across: is hold firm, like you said,
Yeah.
and don't be afraid of your prices, and don't be afraid of what your competitors' prices are, because you don't know what their situation is. You don't know what their overhead is. You don't know that if they're slowly going out of business. There's 100 things you don't know. And so as long as you're pricing the way it is for you to stay in business and to make a profit and to keep your guys employed, then that's what it's all about.
Yeah, that's good.
100%.
What are some of the things that you see in blue collar trades, business owners or salespeople in these businesses? What are some of the things that you see that they get in their own way sometimes? They in terms of how they sell, ways that sabotage themselves.
Well, I think a lot of times we're too technical and we know too much, and so there's all kinds of salespeople out there in categories, and we could spend a whole show just going over the types of salespeople that are out there. But the technical sell is one of those things that where we want to show how competent we are, and we want to show our expertise through our fancy words and code books and language and all of that stuff. And honestly, the consumer doesn't care. They really don't. They want to know that they want to know that they know that information, but to them, they just want to know, I've got this situation going on, or I want this to happen, and are you the guy that's going to make that happen? So whenever we get to that where we're just so coded and so just I don't know the right word, they're just raw and direct and just technical, and we don't take the time to just lighten up, get to know our customers, and get to build that relationship and that rapport, and let them, through conversation, they're going to realize that, I was just dealing with Mrs. Jones down the street on this exact same situation, and and we were able to take care of that, and she loves her new fireplace. I mean, you can introduce your expertise that you've seen these things without just constantly just touting that. So I definitely see that. And then, of course, the biggest thing is once we get to the point where, let's say we don't get the sale, it's what do we do afterwards? And so I know you guys work a lot with follow-up and a lot with closing and things like that, but it's amazing how many people never make even one follow-up call.
The statistics on that are actually unreal. 45% of all businesses out there, and these are just, regardless of industry, 45% of businesses don't even follow up once.
It's insane. It just makes no sense. You've done the hard work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've paid the money to send
Yeah.
your technician out to provide an estimate, all of the money that's involved in that in terms of gas and hours and everything else, and then to not even follow up.
Yeah, and I've even seen the reverse of that, where we've done all the work and we have people not send the proposal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and interestingly, that if you have a follow-up system, you find out that if your people aren't sending the proposal, that's one of the things we found out.
We just recently had a
Yeah.
customer sign up for Closing Commander, which is our follow-up app, and it was they said, I started sending follow-ups to my customers, and they started emailing me back and going, well, I never got the proposal.
Yeah.
What do you mean you never got the proposal? Hold on. And they went and asked, oh yeah, I never sent that.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And they started realizing where the problem
You already
was.
spent 2 or 3 hours of work not to get any potential chance of a reward because you didn't even proposition.
Yeah.
Well, and it's not just the cost of sending the technician out. It's the cost of the marketing. It's the cost of the phone call. It's closing the sale to begin with, to get the lead tech out there. I mean, all that goes into play. And a lot of times people have this idea. They look at their marketing cost, they look at their sales cost, and sometimes they put it all together. Sometimes the way they pull it apart is really wonky. And that's one of the things I want to talk to you about too, because something keeps coming up about tracking marketing versus sales. And I know that you believe in tracking like we do.
Yep.
So can you address that a little bit from your perspective?
Yeah,
how you
absolutely.
feel about
And
that?
I know we've talked about this before at different trade shows and things, and it's one of those things that people immediately, they want to go to the marketing company if they're not getting the sales, right? And so it's like, hey, the marketing's not working. And so to understand that there is a distinct difference between bringing people to your door making your phone ring, making a customer walk in the door, and revenue on the books is two completely different things. And so being able to understand what our opportunities are, what our leads are, how many times the phone rings that are not even legitimate opportunities, but customers, that suspects we call them, or people that walk in our door, that's your marketing dollars. And so then you have to, everything past that is all sales. So, I mean, did we propose? Did we close? Did we make money? Did we make margin? What's our average sell? What's all those types of things? Those are sales functions. And so if you're bringing in a strong percentage on the marketing side and yet they're not seeing a return on the sales side, then you got a sales problem.
Right.
That's typically where I'll come in and kind of find out where that problem is and how do we solve it.
So do you find the same thing in sales that we find in marketing sometimes, that when people reach out to us and they think they have a marketing problem, when I start digging into all the different things that's happening, it ends up being a business problem?
Operations.
Absolutely.
Operations, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, whether there's no processes or there's no systems, there's no management, there's no, I know you guys have been talking a lot about culture and vision and all those types of things. I mean, it's amazing how many people, when I go in and I'll ask them, what's your budget for this month? Or a forecast for this month? And they're like, what? And it's like, and so when we work with individuals on sales plans, we want their input on, what's their quality of life that they want, and, where do they want to be. And that's one of my missions, is to raise the quality of life of everybody that I work with by helping them sell more and make more money and all those types of things. And so sometimes we allow those people to set those goals, and those goals don't align with where the company's trying to go, or we could hit that goal, have this false sense of success, and then the company still doesn't get to where they need to be, or we allow them to control margins and we don't make the profit that we need. And our top line looks good, but the bottom line looks bad. And so I mean, you all know Mark Stoner's story. I mean, it doesn't matter how much money you make. I mean, if it's not,
If it costs you more to make it.
if it costs you more to make it, then what's the point? And so giving visibility to those types of things is extremely important.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to. Would you be willing to come back and do another 15 minutes with us on a second episode and break this into like a two-parter? I'd love to extend this. And when we come back on the next episode, I'd love to talk more about, dig deep into sales process, how to take a team and really build systems that take it to the next level.
Absolutely. It'd be awesome. I appreciate it.
Great. Alan Rush, before we go, though, make sure people know where they can get a hold of you online.
Yeah. I mean, the easiest way is go to the website. It's rushprofits.com, and there's a free consultation form on there. Just fill that out. We'll set up either a phone or a go-to-meeting type conversation and understand what the issues are or challenges are that you have and how we may be able to help you. So
awesome. Very good.
Great.
Alan Rush, thank you.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Man, he talked about some books that I read years ago. Spin Selling was one, and had some great points about how we get in our own way when we sell. Each of us are subject matter experts in whatever it is that we do.
Yep.
We have technical knowledge that nobody else has. And oftentimes the biggest way we shoot ourselves in the foot is we forget that what we know is not what our customer knows. We're starting at two radically different points on the spectrum of knowledge about, the problems and the issues and the solutions.
Yeah. That
That was fascinating to me, just to hear someone say that and quickly just recognize how big of a problem that really is.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that's the number one problem. Period.
Yeah, it really is. And it's a problem because when talking to a customer, you say this often, the quote from Maya Angelou, that it's not what you say that people remember. It's not what you do that people remember. What they will remember forever is how you made them feel.
Yep.
And when you start with an assumption that people know what you know, and you're talking at them, with technical speak and jargon, and you're not taking the time to explain situations or explain issues in layman's terms, oftentimes what that does is it creates, and you don't even realize that you've done it, but it creates this huge gap, this chasm between the two of you, where the customer feels more isolated and alienated than they did before you showed up. Because now, in addition to feeling helpless to solve their own problem, in addition to feeling fearful that it's going to cost them a lot of money, you've just added a new dynamic. Now they feel stupid because they don't know what you know.
Yeah.
And that's your responsibility. As the person communicating with them, you created that chasm that didn't exist before you walked in. So your job is to bridge the gap there and to communicate in a way that helps them understand. So talk a little bit about, I think, some of the ways that customers and technicians talk past one another. And there's a problem to be solved, but the customer thinks about it one way and is expecting a customer service experience. And the tech thinks about it a different way and is expecting simply to solve the problem, get paid, and go. And how that creates problems in terms of the business.
I don't know if I'm going to answer exactly that, but let me just say a couple of things.
Sure.
Because I think this is really important. Language either creates barriers or tears barriers down.
Yeah.
And so language matters. So if I'm telling you what the problem is and I get to the end of it and I say, do you understand? What I'm doing by saying, do you understand, is asking that person, are you smart enough to figure out what I just said? Okay? That's a barrier. Because nobody wants to go, no, I'm really stupid. I don't know what the heck you just said. Say it again. And then you say it exactly the same way. Okay? But if you get to the end and say, does that make sense? Did I explain that well? All of a sudden now the burden's on you. Okay? Now you open the door for that person to very easily say, I did understand part of that, and it does make sense, but here's the part that didn't make sense to me. So now you're in a conversation now, and that's what you want to take it to. You always want to have a two-way conversation. The second thing is you got to listen. And when that person tells you what they don't understand, then you've got to be able to say it differently. If you keep saying it the same way, they still aren't going to get it. And then after a while, they're just going to go.
Yeah.
I see this all the time because, any time that you're explaining to somebody, you are an interpreter. So you're interpreting the technical down to the least common denominator. So when you have to do that, language matters.
Yeah.
So that's one of the very first things I would tell people is pay attention to your language. Never put somebody on their heels. Okay? You want to open doors. So make sure that your language is opening doors.
That's really important because of how that makes the customer feel.
Yes.
And that's what they'll end up remembering.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because, they're either you're going to leave and go, that guy was a total ass, or you can leave and that same person go, that was the nicest guy. And the only thing you did different is your language and left the door open instead of, building a even bigger barrier between you and the customer.
Yeah.
Now, here's another thing that I think is really important. Pay attention to your reviews. Now, I was just recently talking with some people. I'm not going to say who or whatever, but I noticed in a review that I did that there were really some bad reviews. Well, in having several conversations, realized the bad reviews was the owner. Okay? So if you're the owner and you're the one that's generating the bad reviews, you got to be honest with yourself. This is another thing that just irritates the fire out of me. If you want to talk about lying and false news, we are the biggest liars and perpetrators of false news to ourselves as anybody. Okay, because we don't want to face the music of our own inadequacies. But guys, knowing yourself is the beginning of change. If you want your business to change, it starts with you.
Yeah.
If you want your communication to change, it starts with you. If you want to make more money, it starts with you. Everything starts with you. And I've heard people go, I hate that. I don't want it to start with me. I want to get the magic bullet to make everything change, or to make it right, or to whatever it is. The magic bullet is you. But until you figure that out and quit giving yourself permission to give yourself all the false news and false, okays or whatever, and not take it upon yourself to make the needed changes that you have to make as a person, as a leader, as someone, as a businessman, okay, nothing's going to change no matter what you do, because you are the leader of your company. So all that goes into sales. All that goes into how you make people feel. And it's not just your customers. If you're the owner, you're just not responsible for making your customers feel good, but you're responsible for having the feel good, everything's great with your employees. That doesn't mean that you overlook things. There are ways to have fantastic cultures of excellence.
Yeah. And confidence.
And confidence.
Yeah. And confidence is what creates the feel good.
Yeah.
And when a customer knows, you know what, I'm in good hands. I may not
bet.
understand every single thing that this guy is telling me, but I trust that he is doing his best to communicate why it's important. And I'm confident that he's going to take care of the problem for me, even if I don't see the result of it, because it's all behind walls or underground or whatever. And I don't fully understand what he's talking about. I know that when he leaves, I'm going to be better off as a result of him being here. And I'm confident that this is the right decision for me. All of those things are part of that experience.
Yeah. And it's, I've had guys go, well, you just don't understand. And I'm like, no, I do understand. We're a digital marketing agency. You want to talk about the cesspool of the online world.
Yeah.
And
tech jargon and all of that.
And all that. I mean, we are right there in the middle of it. We just have a different profession that we're doing. But let me tell you, it's just as challenging when somebody says, well, how do you do X, Y, Z? And I'm thinking, there's no way they're going to understand this. And then I have to say, well, it's kind of like when you do X, Y, Z for your customer, how do you explain that? And they're like, it's kind of tough. It's like, well, this is one of those things that's kind of tough. I can show you, but if I get you in code, you're going to not know what the heck the code is and, different things. And they understand that. But at some point, you have to just be honest with them and say, this is so technical, I don't think you're going to understand, but let me tell you some things that you can understand about what's going to happen if you fix it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That you can understand because you're going to see the difference. Your house is going to be warmer. The roof's not going to leak anymore. Whatever the solution is, eventually you're going to see that this thing is solved. So, and it's a trust thing, which is another thing in sales. You don't want people to trust you so that you can bilk them.
Right.
If that's your mode of operandi or whatever, that's how you operate, get out of business.
Yeah.
Because you'll be put out of business eventually. Or you'll have to move around the country and just keep bilking people because, unfortunately, there's enough people in the world you could probably make a living at and die and go wherever you're going to go after you've bilked all these people. But, the truth of the matter is trust is earned. Just because you walk into somebody's and you know you're the be-all, end-all in what you do doesn't mean they know that.
Yeah.
All right? And to act that way, you just put people off. You've got to earn trust. And how do you earn trust? Good communication, which we've talked about. So good communication on top of really good systems to know what you're selling and what is the right sell and what's the wrong sell. I mean, there's all kinds of things in relationships. The key here is don't do anything that was going to hurt anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's kind of how I differentiate. When I look at what we do, I make sure I don't want to ever offer anybody anything that I think will ever hurt them, and only offer those things that can make them better today than they are right now. If it's the same, why sell it? If it's going to hurt them, don't sell it. So
yeah, that transparency, that authenticity, that is a responsible way of selling for sure. And the only way you can guarantee that your team is doing that every single time and every single person is to build those systems. So we've asked Alan to come back and talk with us again about building some sales processes and systems in your business. And I think that's going to be a good conversation too. All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for today. If you'd like to let us know how we're doing here on the show, we'd love it if you'd take a minute to leave us a review over in iTunes. Find our show. Just do a search for Blue Collar Proud Show. You'll find the show in iTunes. Just click there on the reviews part and you can leave us a review. More reviews on iTunes means that we're able to serve more listeners. Okay, those reviews, just like in your business, when people read those reviews, they choose you. Well, we want reviews there so that more listeners will listen, which helps us keep up this project and keep it going for a long time. So thanks for doing that. Also, don't forget that you can download our free show app over in the Apple App Store or from Google Play. We've got great content every single week. You get a notice when the new episode drops. You can listen to it right there in the app, as well as special bonus content that you can only find right there in the app, and some special offers to help you grow your business, things that you can take advantage of. So be sure to grab that and put it on your phone. Most of all, though, come hang out with us over in the Blue Collar Proud Nation Facebook group. Always good conversations going on over there, and you can do that simply by doing a search for Blue Collar Proud Nation on the Facebook search bar there. And find the group, ask to join, and you'll be let right in and hang out with us over there. As always, you can find out about all the other places where you can connect with us by simply going to bcpshow.com/connect. And that is going to do it for this episode of the Blue Collar Proud Show. As always, Taylor and I say thank you so much for being in the audience and listening every single week. We want to thank the people that make this show happen as well. That would be Aaron Blaze, our technical director, Jessica Wynn, our show coordinator, and Jonathan Sanders, our community manager. Until next time, remember, it takes the same energy to build a business you hate as it does to build one that you're proud of. So take your blood, sweat, and tears and build it the Blue Collar Proud way. We'll see you again right here next time. Thanks, everyone.
The Blue Collar Proud Show is a production of the Blue Collar Proud Network.